Jacob, tell us about the story you and Julia broke earlier today.
Chris, the Trump administration had in hand evidence presented to them by Customs and Border Protection, CBP, in which they collected data that indicated very clearly that climate change caused hunger, food insecurity, acute food insecurity, starvation, basically, was causing migration to the United States. 100,000 plus people have left Guatemala over the course of the last couple of years, the largest sending country from Central America to the southern border. And instead of take that evidence and double down on foreign aid here in Guatemala, the Trump administration entirely suspended foreign aid that would help would help mitigate what was going on down here in Guatemala. And they put that money towards more militarized approach, ultimately to stemming migration.
Now, you've been down there reporting on how the climate and how the climate crisis has been affecting Guatemala and Guatemalans. What have you learned down there?
It's a dire situation, Chris. People are literally starving to death, and that is why they are leaving. They're not leaving to go get a job or some sort of light future in the United States that the president has sort of talked about. People are leaving because they are looking to save their lives and their families' lives. Honestly, seeing it is something I never expected to see. It's something that I hope that the president sees, and I want everybody to see it. Take a look. We started here in Guatemala City, leaving early to follow our guides from the World Food Program on a journey deep into the country. But we didn't have to go far to see the hardship climate has wrought here. I'm a couple hours drive outside of Guatemala City, and I'm here with these guys from Columbia University and the World Food Program. They're studying how climate change and climate variability affects the livelihoods of small farmers in places just like this, and how that contributes to migration to the United States. We started talking to one of those small farmers who showed up to sell bananas. You know at least 100 people that left to the United States.
No less than 100 people.
Most who have left were in the coffee business like him. They've been hard hit by drought and a plant-killing fungus. He says he's barely surviving by selling bananas instead. Diego Pons is an applied climatologist at Columbia University.
He's going to remain in coffee despite the crisis, but he's been using bananas as a backup.
But not everyone has a backup plan. We carried on to Chiquimula, and 4 hours later drove through the town of Esquipulas on our way to a village only reachable with four-wheel drive. You can tell that the paved roads have ended here, and we are on our way to Las Sopas. The World Food Program brought us here because last year 5 kids in the village died of starvation brought on by climate-induced crop failure. Many of their parents have left for the United States as a last resort. Now, in an emergency response, the UN agency is feeding kids at this school. Nearby, we met this man, a village leader. He took us to some coffee plants that would normally be as good as cash, but today are becoming worthless because of a fungus spreading rapidly due to climate change.
This is the fungus. It is the consequence of drought in Guatemala. Before, there were really good-paying jobs.
The climate crisis here hit just as prices fell to a quarter of what they were previously because of global competition. Can you survive on that amount of money? It's not possible. And so people are leaving. A few hundred yards down the road, we met this woman who now lives alone. Where's your family? ¿Dónde está su familia?
En Estados Unidos, emigrar.
They migrated to the United States, my husband and my daughters.
When did they go?
4 meses que se fueron.
4 months ago.
Con esto de la falta
With this drought, there's no work, and they migrated after 4 years of water crisis.
There have been 4 years of a water crisis, and because of that, there's no jobs. No trabajo. Later that afternoon, we began the bumpy journey out of Las Sopas. There's a lot of talk about a humanitarian crisis at the southern border of the United States, but the reality is the conditions, the real humanitarian crisis is right here.
Yeah, it's all tied together. Lack of opportunities, no credits, no insurance. Just think about starting into agricultural entrepreneurship without all the safety nets that any other farmer in the world will have.
We left Chiquimula and headed towards our next stop, an even drier part of the country, Zacapa. The following morning, we made our way to another rural village where different crops and the farmers who tend to them are also struggling. This is literally the way into the community here. This is the reality that a lot of the small farmers deal with out here. I mean, not only he's saying you got to pay attention for rattlesnakes, but you can drive as far as you can get and then you have to hike. This is Elizabeth. We've made it to her farm and she's showing us what she grows here. Or I guess more accurately, you would say what's not growing here anymore. Maíz?
Sí, maíz.
No tiene nada.
No tiene nada, no cargo nada.
This is corn, and obviously this corn is dead. Melon?
So that was a watermelon.
This was a watermelon. And this is what happened when some watermelon doesn't have enough water. This type of situation, what's happening to her and what's happening to her crops is exactly what you're trying to avoid.
Correct.
How do you do it?
What we're trying to do is, with the new seasonal forecast system, try to tell them exactly how much water they're going to get throughout the year so they can adjust their agricultural calendar to avoid failing of crops.
While the search for long-term solutions continues, desperate farmers here are turning to their last resort. Your daughter, who was 16, went by herself, is now in Philadelphia trying to make a better life. What did she tell you about when she got to the United States, when she crossed?
Que se sentía feliz.
She felt really happy.
Feliz.
This is Elizabeth's house. Su casa.
Sí, aquí esta es mi casa.
Everywhere inside, there are reminders her daughter left behind. This butterfly, this was done by her daughter in the U.S.
Sí.
Okay. She shows me other drawings, too. What's it like to see them? I asked her.
La tristeza.
She says, I feel sad. A familiar story to the tens of thousands of Guatemalans leaving on roads just like this to the United States.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.